Alrighty, we're back with Christy Dye at Rockdale County's Barksdale Elementary, and we're going to jump in now after we've sort of introduced your environment. We're going to jump into actual instruction and what you were doing with the kids just on a day-to-day level. So talk to me about, this was a Unit 2 for your ELA portion of your instruction that you taught back in the fall. So tell me a little bit about what this unit is about and what your goals were for the unit, what you wanted the kids to come away with.
I started with a familiar text or novel that I had read in the past to get me a little bit more comfortable with Common Core before I dove into the framework. So Because of Winn-Dixie was my second unit of study, and my goal was to get them to start inferencing, to start asking the questions as they're reading, to monitor their comprehension, to develop their vocabulary. I wanted them to be comfortable with taking a big novel, which it's 26 chapters,
It is a long book.
and understanding that even though, they may not read on this level with guided instruction, they can learn so many reading strategies with it.
Absolutely. Close reading is a huge part of scaffolding those more complex texts. And I know that there's been some question, we'll just throw this out, that we're looking at the level of text. We still want kids to be able in their choice books to just read whatever they would like. Those more complex texts, exactly as you said, those are the ones that they need you to hold their hands. That's why that's a guided reading. So that's why you're putting them right at that zone of proximal development where they can't quite do this on their own. You couldn't send them home because of Winn-Dixie and say, read this on the weekend, we're going to talk about it on Monday.
Right.
That's where your job as a teacher comes in.
Sure.
So you're going to talk about how you guided that comprehension and did the close reading. In fact, in our next video, we'll talk just solely about your reading strategies. I want to talk about some foundational things. So we know that your goals, you said that when you planned, you looked at the standards, kind of broke them up into learning targets of, characterization and plot and that sort of thing. Talk to me about how you approach things like your language skills, those parts of speech, and the foundational reading piece, which is so big for a lot of our elementary teachers.
Sure. Well, as I was able to sit in the whole group reading time at the carpet, they would read a chapter, and I began noticing and just taking notes as they read. If I heard children guessing at words like they didn't have their decoding skills, I just started making notes. And then when I did my reading groups in the afternoon, I would form those groups around there. And it was okay to pull in a decoding game for those students. Everything did not have to be geared just towards this one text. During the reading group time, I was able to provide interventions for the students that were having difficulty with that. I had students also that had difficulty with parts of speech, and so I started putting that in the whole group reading time, where we would go through and analyze a chapter, but one table would be in charge of finding all the verbs that they could find in a given time. Another group would have to find the adjectives, and then we would come together. And what was amazing about that is that a lot of words are many different parts of speech in different sentences.
Yeah.
And so it was neat to be able to post all the words that we found and then look up there and say, oh, well, park is a noun. And then you say, well, in this text, park is actually a verb. And being able to point all that out to them, it was so much more real to them to see it in the text or in the novel than it is just on a worksheet.
It's so true, the authentic text. And so often we see people pulling these things out and opening sponges or mini lessons, which is great, but then it's disconnected. And why not use the authentic? One of the things that I'm hearing a lot when you talk about your classroom is that I think it's very rich, the instruction in here, because of your flexibility. Sure. We talk about data driving instruction, but you're not only looking at the data that you have from your kids on paper when they come in and through the year, but also the data that you get from formative assessments, which is what they're for. When you're watching the kids throughout the day, you're noticing and you're adjusting your instruction even on a minute-by-minute, hour-to-hour, which is great, but that takes a lot of teacher effort.
Sure.
That's not something that you can sit in July and plan out what you're going to do at 10 a.m. on Tuesday, October 10th, and then stick to it. Or hourly, right? So I think that's wonderful, because I know the kind of effort and engagement that takes from a teacher, so I really congratulate you on that. And I know that folks have worried about the foundational piece in their basils. You found a clever way to make some use of your basils without sort of still being married to them for the foundational
I
piece.
did. I used the Basils. I would pull stories that went along with the novel, and everybody has readers that go along with their series, and so I would pull these. I would pull the above level or the on level, and that way I could differentiate. But I'm still working on nonfiction, and I'm still working on reading skills, and yet I've geared it towards the topic, which is because of Winn-Dixie, there's a little dog in there. So, and I also found a lot of books in the library that were nonfiction on dogs as well. I still think you can use those skills, but your vocabulary and your comprehension and a lot of your grammar, you can get so many things out of the novel that I don't think we realized we could get so much out of before. I think we were so focused in on having story time and not seeing how much we could actually teach from the novels.
Yeah, it's all right there. Why go to the hardware store to get a wrench when you can get one right there in the
Sure.
super Walmart? So one of the things that I love is the way that you have so effortlessly pulled in the informational text and the foundational pieces just seamlessly into your rollout of the Common Core. You make that look really easy. I know that has been one of the problems. People are wondering how to pull in that informational text. But you found that it makes the study of the unit, actually it enhances it instead
Sure.
of, yeah.
I think the students get excited about it, and I know foundational skills are very important. They're still very important in third grade. But I found that if I use my whole group reading time to study the novel, to analyze the chapters, and then I use my small group reading time to actually hit the foundational skills. I had one group that was really struggling with fluency, and I noticed this while they were reading to me. And I just found these little fluency passages, and they have punctuation, and it's the alphabet. It's nothing. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. And they look at the period, they know to say it like a period. Whereas on this strip, if they drew this strip, they would have to say A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M, N, and it just makes them. And then you mix it. A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J, K, L, M.
We'll put some pictures of these strips on. That's adorable.
Sure, and they love it, but it makes them aware of the punctuation that
Divorced
they see
from
as they're
the
reading.
content of
Yes.
the words. That's great.
Yes.
All right, I would like to say I am really interested in the way that you've pulled in this informational text. That's wonderful, and I know that this is one way that we can scaffold that tier 2 and 3 vocabulary. As we were saying in Winn-Dixie, I don't know if, for example, the word canine appears, but it certainly would if you're reading about dogs in the informational text. And so you've got some of those science connections, maybe social studies connections with service animals and that sort of thing. So in our next video, I want to just take a moment and tease out what you do in those small groups with the foundational piece, and what you're doing with vocabulary. So you've got some cute activities. Okay. Man, this is